Welcome back to Driven Daily. As you may have already noticed, the Datsun chassis has been getting pretty popular lately, and that's caused prices to increase. I never really thought about what they were worth before, but seeing that some of the 2+2 models, the four-seater models of these, and some of the later versions of the S30 are going for kind of ridiculous money now, I decided to finally look into this car's history and see where it came from. I originally bought it as a 280Z with an L28 ET swapped into it, and that's an inline-six out of the later 280Z XT. It's one of the earlier factory turbocharged engines out of any of the manufacturers, and Nissan did some really clunky things with it. Still a pretty heavy engine, it makes a lot of power, but it's just not very compelling for racing anymore, so I ended up pulling that out and selling it off. I also sold off the R200 rear differential and the stub axles that were on that and all of the rear suspension, and that all went into a 240Z, which is a pretty common upgrade, going from the 240s R180 differential to the R200 that came in the 280Zs. So essentially, this already had all the fancy upgrades that somebody with a 240Z would want. And when I started cutting up the floors because they were rotted, I noticed some interesting oddities. So the frame rails only came about halfway back. They didn't come all the way back to the rear of the seats like the 280Zs normally did. And the rear bumper, which normally has struts attaching it to the frame, it was some kind of weird compliance thing with the US government so that it would not hurt anything if you hit someone at 5 miles an hour. They didn't work. They were really complex and they were really difficult to remove. But all the 280Zs had those, and this chassis didn't. So I started looking into it. I asked a friend of mine who collects Datsuns, and I traced this back to the second owner of the car. So this car, I was told, is a 1975 280Z, but as it turns out, it's not. Now, I hunted the car's history down to the second owner, who bought it off someone named Ron McFarlane. Apparently Ron was a Datsun racer back in the 70s, and he raced a 240Z, and he was so enamored with it that he contacted Datsun and became a Datsun team racer. He had some success in IMSA and placed 6th on a couple of their races, set a new record at Road Atlanta for a while, and apparently this was a car that was gifted to him by Datsun early in his career. So as it turns out, this is the 128th Datsun S30 chassis to come to the US. That actually makes this a 240Z, an early model 240Z, so that's a Series 1. And it already had an L28 ET from a later 280Z XT installed in it. That's the newer turbocharged engine. And it already had the 280Z's rear differential and suspension and all the subframe and everything. So it had already been kind of ruined from a classic point of view, but this is a car that probably would have been worth bringing back to its former historical glory. This definitely was a collector's car at one point. Being serial number 128 is a pretty big deal, and this would probably be worth somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 restored. Not so much anymore. Anyway, for those of you who are wondering about the history of my S30, there it is. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.